诺奖得主也曾厌学。
I dropped out of school for 3 months in 9th grade.
科研大佬辣评顶刊规则。
The editors of those journals want really splashy results.
2次错失百亿财富，他却毫不在意。
I wear swag. This is free.
从实验室到能源部，身份切换的密码是
Life is short. Do something in your life.
4两拨千斤，基础科学思维重塑产业格局。
Giving support to a scientific chip is going to be much more important than making kids with orange hair happy.
自愈人生的下一站，他又会如何选择？
I have no idea. My crystal ball's not good.
对话朱棣文正在播出，敬请关注。
大家好，欢迎各位收看今天的对话。过去这半个月呢，北京可以说是热闹异常。一边是链博会架起了全球产业合作的桥梁，而另外一边，一场科学盛会吸引了来自世界各地的非常多的顶尖学者，他们齐聚在雁栖湖。您在这儿可以看到诺贝尔奖的得主、菲尔兹奖的得主，还可以看到很多优秀的院士和专家。他们分别围绕着数学、物理、计算机等基础科学领域展开了深度的讨论。这场大会呢，是由邱成桐先生倡议并且推动的。这位在国际学界享有盛誉的数学家，他为什么要耗费心血来打造这样一个基础科学的交流平台呢？他的初衷值得我们一探究竟。
I think it's the beauty and it's our great desire to understand nature that really promotes our enthusiasm to understand basic science. We have to open up no matter what. And basic science is always fundamental. It's an important gateway for China to open up to the Western world and to see our friends from Europe, from America. Science should have no boundary, and all scientists knows that, and they know they can learn from us, and we of course learn a great deal from them, and this is a very important bridge. And we learn from each other. Without learning from each other, science would progress much slower, and especially for China, we cannot close up. We have closed up the gate for a few hundred years. That was a disaster for Chinese development in science. So we should insist to open up. I should mention an interesting curiosity. Japan, of course, during the Second World War, has invaded many countries. But even during the war, some of the Japanese scientists are doing really great, important work. And they also try to learn from outside. So science is a very attractive subject to many human beings. So we are attracted by its beauty, and the truth transcends war, transcends nations, and I believe this is very important.
在这个大会当中呢，备受瞩目的是一个特别的奖项，叫基础科学终身成就奖。这个奖项呢，设立于2023年，旨在表彰在数学、物理、信息科学和工程这3大基础科学领域发挥了根本性的推动作用，同时呢，还做出了杰出贡献，并且具有独创精神的科学家。他们的工作在过去这30年甚至更长的时间当中呢，深刻地影响着科学的发展。在今年的获奖人当中，有这样一位身份多元的人。他30岁的时候呢，供职于大名鼎鼎的贝尔实验室；40岁成为了斯坦福大学历史上第1位华裔教授；50岁的时候获得了诺贝尔奖的物理学奖；60岁呢出任了美国第12任的能源部长。其实刚才我提到的每一个成就，如果单独拎出来的话，是不是都足够传奇了？但是他把所有的这一切集齐于他自己一身。他到底是谁呢？他拥有怎样的一段开挂的人生？
朱棣文，1948年生于美国，祖籍江苏太仓，著名物理学家，因在激光冷却和补线原子方面的开拓性研究，获1997年诺贝尔物理学奖。他曾任美国能源部长，是首位在美国内阁任职的科学家， 可持续能源解决方案的坚定倡导者，在原子物理、生物物理、精密测量和创新能源方面做出了卓越贡献。
蒸上游喝摘要，对话由赤水河上游高端酱酒摘要酒独家冠名播出。欢迎朱棣文先生跟我们开启今天的这场对话。这是您时隔多久之后又一次回到中国呢？
My last visit was last year. I come to China to take part in U.S.-Chinese green energy dialogues. I think it's very important that we continue to talk about things like climate change and help each other do the things that are necessary to mitigate the worst in climate change.
这次到中国来，有没有一些什么样的新的变化、新的气象，给您留下的印象比较深刻？
In the science arena, looking at how things are being done, a new neutrino detector, a new large radio telescope, the biggest in the world. There's made all very exciting things. Continued investments of China in science is very good. I haven't been able to drive a Chinese electric vehicle. I'm very curious. I've heard a lot of good things.
我们也非常高兴地看到这次的基础科学大会，其实有很多优秀的科学家，他们是从全世界各地专程飞来参会的。所以，我们想知道，在您看来，全球保持在科研领域当中的这份合作到底有多重要？
In terms of one's economy, you can be born with resources, oil, gas, minerals, things like that. But eventually that stuff runs out. And in the end, the intellectual activity that created whole new industries, semiconductor industry, computer industry, all these things came out of nurturing your intellectual capability of the country, being a welcome home for other people who are can be bright and creative. Going back to the question about academic things, for reasons that are not good, the people in Republicans and Democrats are worried about China as a competitor. They're worried about a growing Cold War mentality between the two countries. They're actually causing this mentality. But anyway, it's not good for science. It's not good in the long run for both countries because we both benefit. Also, China's science has gotten much better. I would say in certain areas like material science, I would say you lead the United States. People in Congress, the politicians don't realize this. And you're catching up very rapidly in many other areas. Material science, it forms the basis of many things in technology. It's what we call an enabling technology. So it's to our benefit, the United States' benefit, to keep this collaboration. We now have things to learn. Okay. It was not, 30 years ago, it was maybe one way, or 40 years ago. It's different now.
大家都看到您在学术上有非常高的成就。其实很多的中国家长特别渴望从您这儿了解一下，您的家庭究竟有着什么样的一些教育理念、教育实践。核心的问题就是，究竟什么样的家庭用什么样的办法可以培养出如此优秀的孩子
I felt a lot of pressure. In extended family, I was the first male child not to go to Harvard or Princeton in my extended family. You imagine growing up in a family like this. My older brother was very, very good in school, very smart. And in grade school and junior high school, but grade school especially, the teachers would tell me, oh, you're Gilbert's brother, and you're going to do just as well, and it's really great, and everything. And I didn't want to compete with my older brother. He went to the school, got the highest cumulative average in the history of the school. And so I dropped out of school for 3 months in 9th grade and finally went back to school. I wasn't really a serious student until my senior year. Then I went to Rochester, began to do very well. I immediately became a serious student. No one heard of my family. The professors treated me differently, I think, than many other students. And so I got a lot of attention and boosted my self-confidence.
我估计很少有人能够猜到，原来你成长过程当中也曾经面临过来自家庭的压力。
I think this is a very Chinese tradition. that they value education. This long-standing tradition is very good, but there's one dark side. The dark side is they tend to, many Chinese families tend to push their kids into things they consider in the end to be more practical. Engineer, computer science, things like that. You know, I don't think many Chinese want their children to be theoretical cosmologists. Very small fraction of the population can make a living on this. But the other thing is I think education is so important, and they view the quality of their education as grades people get and their ability to get into the best schools as an undergraduate, like Tsinghua, Beida, you know, you name it. And you have a lot of unhappy people. And just as you want to artificially say, you know, your academic worth as your professors, you have to publish in these high-profile journals, too much pressure.
确实啊，在今天我们可以看到有很多年轻的科研人员，他们常常都会面临着一些所谓的顶刊焦虑，或者他们有的时候会有一种冲动，就去做一些短平快的一些实验。当然，这些实验是跟他们自己的兴趣啊、专长啊，有的时候没有那么密切的关系。
Let me say something about this top journal stuff. That, you know, if you there's too much emphasis on publishing in Science or Nature, or if you're in biology, Cell. Overemphasis on it, and it's actually bad for science because the editors of those journals want really splashy results. And if you want splashy results, then you can start to tempt the scientists to make claims that are a little bit overclaimed, things like that. Others you can't get published. I try to tell my people, don't try to do this. But many young people, they just think, you know, it's really good on your resume to have this. This obsession about impact factor has gone crazy.
可是，如果你不在顶刊上发表论文，你在找工作的时候，也许就要面临很多的压力。比如说，同样的两个人，他们在竞争同一个岗位，显然在今天的语境之下，我们会说，那个发表过顶刊论文的人似乎更有机会。
In very good departments in the United States, we ask, what did the people do? We don't ask how many papers they publish or where they publish.
Yeah.
Now, certainly if you see a lot of top journals, there's an assumption going in that they must have done good work. But really, when they go for a job interview for assistant professor, all those things get you in the door. And then when you talk one-on-one with the professors, we can find out really, you know, how good they are and how they, you know, do they know what they did? You get a sense of, were they just told what to do? Are they going to become independent? Are they going to strike off and do something new? Or they just want to do their thesis experiment or postdoc experiment over and over again? You're not looking for that. You're looking for more daring and adventuresome work. But a lot of young people, they say it looks good to do this. It's very unhealthy overall for science. When I was hired by Berkeley, I was a graduate student there for 6 years. It took a long time. Postdoc for 2. After a year and a half, working on the same project with the same advisor, they asked me to join the faculty. And when they did, I had not published a scientific paper yet. And they say, it's impossible today. Maybe so.
其实我们今天这个时代不缺乏对科学、对研究有热爱的年轻人，但你同时也能看到这样的一群年轻人，他们对于自己要不要投身于科研，还是会有着一些担心、一些犹豫。那对这样的一群人，您会有什么样的建议吗？
I think if they love what they're doing, they should dedicate their lives to it. If they don't like what they're doing and it becomes painful, or they're only doing it for prestige, don't.
Okay.
Life is short.
Okay.
Do something you like. And if you stop loving it, do something else. You have intellectual capability. You can do many, many things. And the world is a very rich place to use your mind. A lot of the young scientists are worried. People doing basic research are worried. Will I find a job? This is universally true.
Yeah.
I think the job opportunities are higher in China than in the US for sure right now, probably in Europe as well. But there's still a lot of uncertainty. Usually, if you're doing basic research, astronomy, cosmology, astrophysics, high energy physics, even basic research in chemistry, biology, there are many more students and PhDs and postdocs than there are academic positions. All over the world, the large fraction of those actually do not go and become professors, but the training they get, discipline in thinking, is very valuable. They can go and work in industry, they can maybe start their own businesses, and that rigorous training is very good for them. I can sympathize that there's a lot of uncertainty, much more uncertainty at the moment in the United States because we don't know what's going to happen in the near future. But I think this has been true when I was a graduate student in 1976. There was a lull in hiring. My parents were very concerned. They said, "You're studying physics. What are you going to do after this?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun, and then a postdoc, and if I can get a job as an academic, good. If I can't, it's okay." Now, I was very lucky. The University of California in Berkeley asked me to join their faculty after a year and a half of postdoc there. Many young people are getting overly anxious about their career. They're getting overly anxious about their resume and looking good. And the only advice I can say is, if you like what you're doing, continue doing it. And if you really like it, and hopefully you're good at it, you will find a home. But no matter what, your training will be very valuable in the future.
2005至2009年，朱棣文加入英伟达董事会，恰逢该公司发展关键期。在董事会，他见证了英伟达护城河 CUDA 的诞生，以及黄仁勋推动 GPU 用于科学计算等重要里程碑。
确实啊，对于科学家来说，工作机会有着更多的一些可能性。如果你做得到打开脑洞的话，像我们大家都知道，您在2004年的时候就加入了英伟达的董事会，但是我们不知道的是，在这背后有着什么样的故事呢？
It's a short story. I became friends with the head of the board of trustees. This person thought I was very interesting, and so I got introduced to NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, and I thought at the time it was really a very exciting company.
您能透露一下黄仁勋是怎么吸引您入伙的吗？
At the time, the graphic chips were used for computer games, but there was a lot of technology in these graphic chips, and the way the graphic chips did the numerical calculations had a design that was very similar to Cray supercomputers. And so it looked very exciting. But I do remember vividly, sometime between 2004 and 2008, he said, "I'm thinking of using these graphic chips to make them double precision, so you have lots of calculation ability. And I'm also thinking there's a very specialized programming called CUDA." I said, "If you do this, these chips will very quickly become the heart of many or most supercomputers. And so you should go ahead and do this." Yeah. He was going to, thinking of it, but as a board member, you can say, this is a great thing. Of course, neither he nor I could foresee machine learning and the architecture being very good for machine learning as well. So, he's a very smart guy. He's very visionary. He's a nice guy. I like him. I had to sell my stock when I went to work for the government. When I left the government, he asked if I wanted to rejoin. I said, "Well, let me think about it." I thought about it for a month or two, and after that, they said, "Sorry, we found someone else." Their stock was 11. They would give me a couple 100,000 shares, so I'd be worth, that's a couple 100 million. But their stock went from 11 to 2,000. So I multiplied 2,000 times 200,000, and you get a very big number. And so it's one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. The second dumbest was the senator from California said, "I can get you on the Apple board. Would you like to join the Apple board?" And I said, "Well, I'm on the NVIDIA board. I'm on the Hewlett Foundation nonprofit board. I advise MacArthur Foundation. So maybe I don't have enough time. This is 1 year before the iPhone.
OK，
So the two stupidest financial decisions of my life.
我也好希望这两件事都没有发生。现在回想起当时所做的这些决定，您会有那么一丝丝的后悔或者遗憾，自己曾经和这两笔巨大的财富就如此擦身而过了吗？
So I keep on telling myself, suppose I'm worth, a couple $100 million. Would my life really change? Probably. I wear swag. This is, free. I don't wear fancy clothes. I have one house, no summer home. I drive a 24-year-old car. I don't need a lot of money.
在英伟达的董事会当中啊，作为一名科学家，您通常会帮他们做一些什么样的决策建议呢？
The one thing was giving support to a scientific chip. I think that's my biggest contribution. And I said it in a very strange way. I said, look, you do this and it becomes the heart of the supercomputers we use for climate change, for higher level calculations of many kinds. And it's going to be much more important than making kids with orange hair happy. Because those are the kind of my exaggeration of big gamers and people who play computer games. The computer games are really interesting. I didn't know this until I joined the board. They go bang, 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 and they shoot things, and things go and things explode. That thing is a physics calculation in real time, including, air drag. It's amazing. And so the calculation ability of those chips are now the heart of the supercomputers.
英伟达把 GPU 作为科学计算，应该可以看成是他们在业务转型这个层面上具有里程碑意义的一个关键的节点。那今天我们才知道，原来在这个主意的背后，还有得到来自知名的物理学家的一些建议和启发。那是不是这也就意味着，对任何一家公司来说，其实他们都应该邀请优秀的物理学家来坐镇呢？
Any company needs a lot of physicists. Well, yes and no. I think physicists who go into other fields become very valuable because they think differently. And they have flexibility and they're willing to work on problems that they're not originally trained to work on. I talked to a person who was head of a company making hard disk drives. And the way you make hard disk drives, it's called Seagate. It's a well-known hard disk drive. Is that the magnetic head is really close to the disk. They're just spinning like crazy, but there's a very small fraction of a millimeter distance. And the way it works is that the spinning disk carries a little air around it, and there's aerodynamics on the head that keeps it floating above this. Right? He said, I hired engineers, and then I hired a physicist, and he solved the problem. But after he solved the problem, I gave him another problem that's totally different. And he solved that one. And so he said to me, from here on in, I'm going to hire physicists because they make the best engineers. Now, that's an exaggeration. The engineers can be very, very smart. In fact, the best ones kind of think like physicists.
如今21年的时间过去了，而英伟达的市值也达到了一个巅峰。
Sure, $4 trillion.
4万亿美元不是一个小数字，而且英伟达因此也创下了一个记录，就是史上第一家市值突破4万亿美元的公司。那您觉得他们的前景是否依然光明？您始终看好他们的未来吗？
Actually, a friend of mine who I think, he asked me this question maybe 2 years ago. He said, I still got a lot of NVIDIA stock. I didn't meet my board, and he said, do you think it's going to stay in the lead? And I said, well, I don't know. My crystal ball's not good, but they're doing the right things. What are they doing? Intense competition by other companies to try to displace them. But what they are doing was they're building an ecosystem. You continue to develop the high-level language. You continue to do research on applications for machine learning, artificial intelligence. And so it's like Apple. The big hit was the phone, right? Apple built an ecosystem that linked the phone to the computer, to the watch, to the earbuds, to everything. And then it gets you addicted to using Apple technology. You can wear a watch talks to the phone, talks to the computer. They're building this ecosystem. And so once you have an ecosystem, once we want to replace it, they have to compete on the whole system, not just the device. So, you know, for the next couple of years, they'll still be on top.
您看好英伟达，也是因为看好人工智能未来的发展吗？
AI is part of the semiconductor compute power, those things. What we've discovered due to AI is that it's become a very, very powerful tool that every company that I know about is using it. They're putting all their manuals in it, they're doing all those things, and they're trying to discover how to run their business more efficiently, the logistics, everything. And then the next vision is, how do you do product development in more than just an incremental way? By incremental, you think, well, you build something that's a little different. You have a cathedral, and you build it a little bit better. You want to make the gold beam, you want to be gloriously high, you want it to look ordinary, and you have these high stained glass windows, and then you have these fine buttresses, okay? And then to pile up the weight on the fine buttresses is incremental. You know, just when some of them fell down, you learn from that. So companies will say, well, do I really have to do it that way? Can I make bigger jumps? Can I design a jet engine using AI to make radical departure? Today's jet engines are mostly, they're turbofans, and the reason it's so big is because those blades are actually, the turbine is generating the blades that actually act as the propeller. So 80% of the thrust comes from propeller. So then you would think, okay, this goes back to the old days of turboprops. Do you need the cowling? Do you need this? Do you need that? So these questions can come up, but to develop a new jet engine is really a lot of money. Just to test the jet engine. I used to have a friend who worked for a company that made Pratt & Whitney jet engines. And he told me $1 million per minute on a test stand to test the highest tech new jet engine. So AI is going to be able to make these things much faster, make design changes more radical, for sure. I think the first real application of AI would be to understand quantum chemistry and the interactions that you could not simulate with a digital computer. Now, what are the front runners in this? The early front runner for many decades was Josephson junctions. That the Josephson junction, the physics is that you had a way of maintaining a quantum state at very low temperatures, liquid helium, traditionally liquid helium temperatures. And so you could have some quantum system that was, you can actually fabricate and make, and you can query, and you can do all those other things. Then there were ion quantum computers, just, you know, like 3, 4, 5, 10 ion states, but 10 is not enough. You want many bits, but there's noise. Because the quantum systems are so delicate, they can couple the outside world, and they can lose this, what's called phase coherence of this state, because it just interacts with the world, which is ugly and has a lot of friction and dissipates. So what you want the quantum system to do is you need to talk to it, but while it's doing the calculation, you have to isolate it for its environment so it doesn't have this noise. But you still need to probe it when you need to. And so it's very, very hard. If you asked me 10 years ago, when are you going to have an inflection point, the way we had an inflection point with the internet, it really changed the way we communicate, the way we have an inflection point with machine learning or artificial intelligence. When will the quantum inflection point come? If you asked me 10 years ago, I'd say, 10 years, 20 years, who knows? Now you ask me today, and say 10 years, 5 years, different. Surprisingly, a very late entry was taking neutral atoms, holding neutral atoms in a vacuum with light forces that I got my Nobel Prize for, you know, same waves of light, and optical tweezers, taking an atom and move it over here and have it talk to another atom in a quantum state, But it's just not one. You want to do thousands or tens of thousands all at once. But we have that technology also. And so now we don't know, but the neutral atom technology has surpassed the ions. Whether they could be comparable to the Josephson. And the algorithms are getting better, and the noise is getting lower. And so this is all. The great thing about atoms is you don't make the atom, like nature made the atom.
Yeah.
So the imperfections in manufacturing are gone. So there's a lot of things why it might. But so it's an exciting time, but I can't predict what's the real application going to be. There's few companies that claim application things. Also, first application will be a hybrid.
诺奖得主也曾厌学，
I dropped out of school for 3 months in 9th grade.
科研大佬辣评顶刊规则，
The editors of those journals want really splashy results.
2次错失百亿财富，他却毫不在意。
I wear swag. This is free.
从实验室到能源部，身份切换的密码是
Life is short. Do something you like.
对话朱棣文，正在播出，敬请关注。
欢迎继续收看对话。蒸上游，喝摘要。对话由赤水河上游高端酱酒摘要酒独家冠名播出。现在有一个讨论特别热，就是量子计算加 AI 到底会不会催生下一个让世界都为之震撼的重要的突破？就如同当年您获得诺奖的科研成果抓住原子，相当于那个级别。大家都在思考，光量子芯片在未来到底会不会成为颠覆现有 AI 计算基础设施的下一代的技术？您觉得有可能吗？
I have no idea. I really have no idea about that. It's hard to say. If anything has told me anything, it's really hard to replace silicon. And right now, a lot of the attention of those companies designing the chips, the companies making the machines that make the chips, are focused on getting silicon to talk from one chip to another at high density, because right now there's a kind of a natural tens of billions of gates on a single chip. Will it be 100 billion? Maybe, but after that, forget it, because the yield becomes low. We're nearing the end of Moore's law. Design is now 2 or 3 nanometers. Is it going to go below a nanometer? Probably not, because you're getting atom size. And they're looking, is it possible to use graphene as a one-dimensional, two-dimensional conductor? Can you do it lithographically with nanometer precision? Insulator, hexagon boron nitride. Can you do that? This is really exotic. But right now, CMOS silicon, talk to a chip optically, seamlessly with very low power, is where they're investing a lot of the money, because this is, for the next 10 years, going to be the frontier. Yield is everything in semiconductors. But, and so whenever you hear a new technology that sounds really promising, several decades ago, they talked about gallium arsenide replacing silicon. No. It still rules. And so it's hard to say, but that's where, for the next 5 or 10 years, where people are putting their efforts. In the future, quantum computing will become a reality.
您看 AI 如此的厉害，他们都可以自主设计试验了。那未来对于这些年轻的科研人员，包括在每一个岗位上的我们来讲，如何才能够不被 AI 所取代呢？
AI can do amazing things, but right now the large language model types of AI are more interpolation or very small extrapolation. They're not able to make big daring leaps. I use ChatGPT and Perplexity every day, literally every day. I have a research question, I ask it something, and I use that as what I call a pre-Google search. Because you don't believe everything or much of anything. It's just a way to save time in search, just as when you have Google, it's a way to save time rather than kind of going looking at journals or libraries or indexes. So it can be a very useful tool. To what extent it can replace things? Well, it's going to replace standard things. If I were a lawyer, a lot of the young lawyers are asked to look at the law case history and decide what's the precedent. Well, machine learning does this much better, much faster. A lot of the paperwork stuff you don't need. What about research? Well, if you're doing laboratory work, we don't have skilled robots. Robots cost a lot more than graduate students. and you know, it's a multi-complex thing, and you're working in three-dimensional space. But what's real profound intelligence? It's being able to synthesize in a way that enables you to make a big leap. Now, having said that, in science, I would say at least 95, maybe 99% is very incremental. The people who actually start new fields, get real breakthroughs, somehow either they get lucky and you just have to make a measurement and they're right place at the right time. But usually, even when they get lucky, many scientists choose not to listen to something in the laboratory saying, this is a little odd, you know, because they have a clear mind. They may expect what the answer should be. Yeah. Maybe they think that theoretically it should be this, and it's not. Then they say, well, maybe this is not a good thing. They do it again, you get the same answer, and then they say, it's not working. So I go, and a really good scientist will say, maybe nature is trying to tell me something. I don't know what's going to happen with AI when it is able to do big leaps. So far, I haven't seen really big leaps.
但是现在看起来，人工智能的能力涌现，好像不是我们人类可以想象的。所以，您觉得终极的智能究竟会以什么样的形态出现
？Remember, a long time ago, it's saying, well, you know, it can't really do something like beat a grandmaster in chess. Yeah. Then it beat the world champion. Okay, and they said, well, that's not really intelligence. Real intelligence, it would beat the big grandmaster Go champion in the world. And they beat the best Go champion in the world. And so this boundary of what you consider real intelligence is moving. So now, based on that history, it's, you know, come on. It's just an artificial definition we used to feel comfortable about ourselves opposed to a machine. Yeah. Now, but in a certain sense, we are a machine. So you know, will AI get to where we are? Probably, but if you look at the energy used to train a large language model, a ChatGPT, the amount of energy and the number of parameters, we're talking about trillions of parameters. We're talking about 10 billion parameters. We're talking about 10 billion petaflops of things. And you compare that and the huge amount of power, several hundred megawatts of power, running for many, many days, months, okay, years, in order to train something like that. You look at a 4-year-old. They can learn languages. If their mother, their father, and speak all different languages, they learn them automatically. They know how to translate by the time they're 4 years old. What about the energy? Not 400, 300 megawatts. We're talking about 35 watts. They eat 70 watts. Half of it goes to their brain. and the amount of data they need is so small compared to what we need to train these AI large language models.
没错，人类似乎真的可以以更少的数据、更低的能量来获取知识。
So something is fundamentally different, and the right architecture we haven't come upon. But there's actually a hardware reason why. If you look at so-called Hopfield neural nets, which is first being got recognized in the Nobel Prize, the connections of number transistor talking to another transistor in our brain, we can have one neuron can talk to as many as 10,000 neurons. We don't know how to make hardware like that. So if you can't make hardware like that, you can't make an architecture like that. So there are certain issues that we should learn how to make hardware that, and in the end, if you want to do this with very low energy, we will need a very different type of intelligence in our architecture.
在朱棣文先生的身上，你可以看到传奇，更可以看到平实，而且这两者的碰撞格外的鲜明。他的履历上，诺贝尔物理学奖的得主，美国能源部的部长，英伟达董事会成员，可以说每一项都足够的耀眼。但是当他谈及到这一切的时候，语气却像是在聊一场日常的实验。在对话当中啊，最触动我的是他对价值的理解。你看，当他聊到错过了英伟达、错过了苹果的巨额财富的时候，他会指着自己身上的免费 T 恤说：“我其实不需要那么多钱。”这种淡然和他对科学的热忱形成了鲜明的对比。他可以清晰地记得2004年和黄仁勋讨论芯片设计的细节，他也能够精准地解释 GPU 如何从游戏设备变成了超级计算机的核心。轻外物，重热爱。或许呢，这也就是他能够在许多的领域自如切换的一个关键。朱棣文先生的成长经历，其实也打破了很多人认为天才必顺境的传统的想象。你看，原来他也曾经因为哥哥的光环而厌学而弃学，他的父母也曾经担心你学物理到底能做什么呀？但是这一切恰恰印证了他的观点。科研不是追顶刊，不是拼简历，而是跟着兴趣走的一段特殊的旅程。未来的挑战或许依然复杂，气候变化需要更多的协作，基础研究需要更多的耐心，年轻人需要更多允许试错的空间。但是，只要还有人像朱棣文先生这样，带着对科学的纯粹热爱，对世界的开放心态不断前行，我们就有理由相信，答案不在终点，而在像今天这样的对话当中，在每一个因为热爱所以坚持的瞬间里。我们特别感谢朱棣文先生，也感谢每一位在未知当中勇敢探索的人。谢谢您的收看，我们下期对话再见。